Hello and welcome to Press Party, where we turn the tables and talk about the media. I'm your host, Katie Eastman. 911 recordings from the Sandy Hook school shooting were released, leaving news organizations with a big ethical decision. And the man, the myth, the legend, Ron Burgundy, was in Boston on Wednesday. Emerson College named their School of Communication after him. It's the latest magazine cutting back, but it's also one of the longest running. What will happen to New York Magazine? And our media fail of the week, anchors faking it with a green screen. Now let's introduce our panelists. First off, we have John Nucci. He's the Vice President of Government Relations and Community Affairs here at Suffolk University. And Tito Jackson, a Boston City Councilor. And David Gerzoff Richard, and he is a social media and marketing professor at Emerson College. Thank you so much to our panel. It's almost the one-year anniversary of the school shooting at Sandy Hook Elementary School in Newtown, Connecticut. On December 14th, Adam Lanza killed 20 first graders and 6 teachers. Just this week, police released some of the 911 calls, and news organizations had to decide whether or not to air them.
John 911, what's the location of your emergency?
Every news organization faced the decision to air or not to air the 911 calls from December 14th, 2012.
The first call came in from the school secretary moments after classes started.
Each network acted differently. ABC News chose not to broadcast them on TV, but you can access them online.
Instead, we have selected these red portions to help paint a picture of what happened, the timeline, and police response.
CBS and CNN chose to air some of the calls.
We should warn you, what you're about to hear could be disturbing.
NBC will not air them.
NBC News will comply with the wishes of many of the families who've asked that the 911 audio not be aired.
Fox News told viewers they would not air the most gut-wrenching parts, and many newspapers have the audio online with warnings of graphic content. The tapes were released after the Associated Press sued for access to them. The state attorney fought back, saying the release would re-traumatize the families affected by the shooting.
We don't feel that the 911 calls should have been released. But that decision's been made now, and it will affect our community.
Reporting for Press Party, I'm Katie Eastman. All right, so John Nucci, first question for you. Who did it right? Is there a right way to do it?
I think it opens up a discussion that is an important discussion. You know, we can talk about whether this is appropriate to put on, inappropriate to put on, whether people are fascinated by it, not fascinated by it, who ran what for how many minutes. But the real issue is that discussion about the role of the media. What is it supposed to do? Is it supposed to give us what we want to see? Is it supposed to give us what we should see? And if it's supposed to give us what we should see, is it supposed to be what they think we should see?
So what is the role of the media? Tito, what are they supposed to do? What are we supposed to do?
At this point, I think, one, we have to acknowledge the fact that the police actually allowed these tapes to be put out. And also the timing, I think, is critical here. If these tapes had been released immediately, with all of the things that were going on, the fact that we're a year out, people were revisiting it, people want to know more about this, and as a policy maker, also, what are some of the things that could have been done better in terms of the school and the setup? So I actually think it was the right thing to release them, and also to play them, because this issue of mental health is one of the things that I think the media can bring more attention to.
Now the families are saying, we're so upset because it's re-traumatizing us. How do we do our job and tell people what happened and what information is being released without re-traumatizing the families?
I agree with Tito that we do need to have this information out there so we can learn from it and try to prevent it from happening in the future. What I question is the timing on it, especially that we're coming to the one-year anniversary. You know, these parents have probably been dealing with this for, 11 and a half months at this point in time. They might just have, been able to put it behind them, and then this just, rips the wound right open. So that I have a challenge with.
John,
I want to disagree with both. I think it is important to have the discussion, especially a year out. There's no question about it, because we do have to learn from this. We have to understand mental health issues. We have to understand the violence issues, what causes them, and how we can stop them. That said, we could sit down with the transcript of these tapes and read them from beginning to end and learn nothing about mental health and learn nothing about the motives, just simply drama.
But what about, couldn't we learn how to respond to these situations? Because we are hearing directly from the dispatchers and how they talked to the people on the phones. Isn't that something that we need to learn how to
That could be a good exercise for police officers and for law enforcement officials to sit down and review them. But to put them on the news, to put them in the media, we don't need to know how to respond. Law enforcement does. So we're listening to those tapes for drama and dramatic effect. We're not learning anything from those tapes.
But I would argue that the drama serves as a catalyst for discussion that we should be having, because the headlines seem to be not changing with these scenarios. It's just the date and the place. And they just keep repeating. So something needs to change. And as a society, we need to have a discourse on this.
And I think there's an activism component here too. These parents went to Congress to try to get laws changed, and they wouldn't change them. And so I think the other, aspect of this is that we need to continue to bring attention to the fact that these things are happening, all too often. I do actually accept that opinion around what the family must be going through as they really think about those losses. That does add, some color to it.
So do both of you think that, so CBS News, they led with that story on Wednesday night and they used the 911 tapes with discretion. Do you think they should have done that?
I personally think that the way that NBC handled it was
They didn't air them.
Was the right. They did not air them, but they did. Brian Williams did say that these were released and they are available online. So they made us aware of it, and it got us thinking about the issue again without really tapping into it. And I think that was the appropriate way to handle it.
Do you agree with that?
I actually, my friend from East Boston, but the transcripts tell us the same thing. And
without the emotion.
Yes.
Right.
And I think that there's this visceral thing that people want to see, and so I think having the transcripts out there and just the information would have been good enough.
Do you agree with that? Do you think
I agree.
you should see the transcripts, or do you think not at all?
Well, I don't particularly care to read them, but there might be some people who want to for whatever reason, and maybe very good reasons. So my answer would be essentially the same as yours, which is giving people information on where to find them. If they want to read them, I think is the way to do it. But to just throw them up on the air, I don't know what purpose is served. I'm not particularly offended by it, but I just don't know what purpose is served.
All right, well, thanks everyone for watching. You won't want to miss our next segment because it's kind of a big deal. Ron Burgundy in Boston. That's a click away.